The soft glow of morning stretched across Vienna like a silk sheet, caressing the marble facade of Schönbrunn Palace. Outside, winter gripped the land in a frozen stillness, but inside the kitchens, fires blazed as servants prepared for the day ahead. Princess Winifred Ambrose stood silently at the kitchen threshold, her formal dress concealed beneath a simple woolen cloak. At 20, she remained unmarried, a disappointment to her father, Prince Victor, cousin to Emperor Franz Joseph and 18th in line to the Austro-Hungarian throne. The year was 1897, and Vienna glittered as Europe's cultural center, a place where waltzes echoed through grand ballrooms and political intrigue simmered beneath polite conversation. Winifred's presence in the palace kitchens before dawn would have scandalized the court, but no one noticed her. Servants hurried past, arms laden with trays, kettles steaming as the morning meal took shape. She had perfected the art of invisibility, standing perfectly still until the head cook, Frau Bauer, turned her broad back. In those precious moments, Winifred would steal a glimpse of him, Isaac Reinhardt, the newest kitchen boy. Unlike the other servants, he moved with quiet dignity, his dark eyes betraying an education uncommon among those who toiled below stairs. His hands were different too, not the rough, calloused hands of a lifelong servant, but those of someone who had known another existence. Winifred had first noticed him 3 months earlier, when she had fled a suffocating ball and found refuge in a forgotten corridor near the kitchens. There, through a partially open door, she had heard someone playing the piano in the servants' hall, a haunting melody by Chopin that had brought tears to her eyes. Isaac had been playing, his expression transported, until Frau Bauer had struck him across the shoulders with a wooden spoon, demanding he return to peeling potatoes. In that unguarded moment, Winifred had recognized in him what she felt in herself, a soul caged by circumstance. "Are you waiting for something specific, Highness?" The voice startled her. Lady Margaret, her lady-in-waiting, stood behind her with an arched eyebrow. Winifred stepped away from the doorway. "I was merely curious about tonight's menu." "Of course." Lady Margaret's tone suggested she believed otherwise. "Your mother sent me to find you. The Archduchess is arriving within the hour, and you're expected at breakfast." Winifred nodded, stealing one last glance at Isaac, who was methodically slicing bread, unaware of her presence. "That new kitchen boy," Lady Margaret remarked. "The tall one. They say he was once a professor's son." Winifred's heart quickened. "Oh. Yes, quite the scandal. His father taught at the university until he published some radical ideas. The family lost everything. The boy's lucky to have found a position here." As they walked back through the grand corridors, Winifred's mind filled with questions. What radical ideas could have cost a family everything? What was it like to fall so far? At breakfast, she barely tasted the perfectly prepared dishes, mechanically responding to her mother's inquiries about her dance card for the upcoming imperial ball. Princess Amelia, 10 years Winifred's senior and successfully married to a minor duke, delivered a continuous monologue about the latest Paris fashions. "Winnie, are you listening?" her mother asked. "Count Esterhazy has expressed interest in a formal introduction. He's 45 years old, mother." "His account with extensive estates in Hungary," her mother replied, as if this explained everything. "I'll consider it," Winifred murmured, knowing she would do no such thing. Later that afternoon, during the customary hour when noble ladies retired to their chambers, Winifred slipped away again. This time, she ventured into the palace gardens, despite the winter chill. The vast grounds offered solitude impossible to find within the palace walls. Near the orangery, she discovered a figure clearing snow from one of the paths, Isaac, working alone. He hadn't seen her yet. Winifred could have turned back, maintaining the proper distance between her station and his. Instead, she walked forward. He looked up as her footsteps crunched on the snow, immediately straightening when he recognized her. "Your Highness," he said, bowing deeply. "Please, don't," Winifred said, glancing around to ensure they were alone. "I heard you playing the piano 3 months ago." Surprise flashed across his face, followed by wariness. "I apologize if I disturbed you, Highness." "You didn't disturb me. It was beautiful, Chopin's Nocturne in C-sharp minor." Now astonishment replaced wariness. You know Chopin's work. I've had piano lessons since I was 4. She smiled. Though I never play with your passion. He seemed at a loss for words, clutching the snow shovel as if it might shield him from the impropriety of this conversation. Lady Margaret says your father was a professor, Winifred continued, her voice softer now. Isaac's expression closed. He was, yes. What did he teach? A pause. Philosophy and political theory. Winifred waited for him to elaborate, but he remained silent, his gaze now fixed on the snow at his feet. I should let you return to your work, she said finally. He bowed again. Your Highness. As Winifred walked away, her heart pounded. She had spoken directly to him, broken every rule of propriety. Yet instead of shame, she felt exhilarated. For the first time in months, perhaps years, she had spoken to someone who didn't view her solely as Princess Winifred Ambrose, potential bride for aging counts and barons. That night, she couldn't sleep. Instead, she sat at her writing desk and penned a note on plain stationery, not the embossed royal paper she normally used. Asterisk, I have access to the music room after midnight. If you would like to play without fear of wooden spoons, the Bosendorfer grand piano awaits. Asterisk, she signed only with the letter asterisk W star. The next morning, Winifred found an excuse to visit the kitchens again, this time under the pretense of discussing menu changes with Frau Bauer. As the cook rattled on about the impossibility of securing fresh oranges in winter, Winifred slipped her note onto a tray of bread that Isaac was preparing to deliver upstairs. For 3 nights, she waited in the music room, sitting in darkness beside the magnificent piano. For 3 nights, no one came. On the 4th night, as the palace clock struck 1, she heard the door open. Isaac stood in the doorway, his expression a mixture of trepidation and longing. This is madness, he whispered. Perhaps, she conceded. But I wanted to hear you play again. If anyone discovers us, they won't. This wing is closed for renovations. I bribed the guard to look the other way. He hesitated, then walked slowly to the piano, running his fingertips reverently over the polished surface. My father had a piano. Nothing like this, but he taught me to play when I was very young. What happened to him? Winifred asked gently. Isaac sat at the bench, his shoulders tense. He was arrested for sedition last year. His writings criticized the empire's treatment of its ethnic minorities. He's in prison now. Winifred felt a chill. Her own family was part of the imperial system that had imprisoned his father. I'm sorry, she said inadequately. He nodded once, then placed his hands on the keys and began to play. Not Chopin this time, but Beethoven, the Moonlight Sonata, its melancholic notes filling the darkness around them. Winifred closed her eyes, letting the music wash over her. When he finished, silence hung between them. Your turn, Isaac said unexpectedly. She shook her head. I couldn't possibly, please. He moved to make room on the bench. Hesitantly, Winifred sat beside him, acutely aware of the narrow space they shared. Her hands trembled as she began to play Mozart, simple compared to his Beethoven, but she played with technical precision. You've been well trained, he observed when she finished. For 15 years. Along with French, Italian, Russian, embroidery, etiquette, and the history of every royal house in Europe. And yet you seem unsatisfied, Isaac said quietly. Winifred looked up, startled by his perception. Is it that obvious? Only to someone who recognizes the feeling. Their eyes met in the dim light. Something unspoken passed between them, a recognition of kindred spirits trapped in different cages. I should go, Isaac said suddenly, rising from the bench. Thank you for this unexpected gift. Will you come again tomorrow night? The question escaped before Winifred could consider its implications. He paused at the door. It would be wiser not to. I didn't ask what would be wise. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Then yes, I will come. And so began their midnight ritual. Each night, Isaac would slip into the music room, and together they would play, sometimes duets, sometimes taking turns. Between pieces, they talked. He told her about his childhood in Prague, about his father's academic work and subsequent arrest. She shared the suffocating emptiness of palace life, the parade of suitable matches her parents presented, none of whom saw her as more than a well-connected ornament. "What would you do if you were free?" Isaac asked one night, 3 weeks into their clandestine meetings. Winifred considered the question. "Travel, perhaps. See the world beyond royal tours and diplomatic visits. Study at a university. Women can study at universities now. Princesses cannot," she countered. "At least, not this princess." On Isaac's next night off, Winifred convinced Lady Margaret to accompany her to the opera. There, in the imperial box, she watched the performance without seeing it, knowing that somewhere in the standing room section, Isaac was watching the same stage. After the opera, as they left through a side entrance to avoid crowds, Winifred spotted him in the distance. Their eyes met briefly before he disappeared into the throng of theatregoers. That night, she wrote him another note. ** The orangery at dawn tomorrow. The gardeners don't arrive until 7. ** She slipped it to him the next morning as she passed through the breakfast service, pretending to inspect the table settings. Their fingers brushed for an instant, the first time they had touched. In the orangery, surrounded by exotic plants that thrived despite the winter outside, Winifred waited. When Isaac arrived, his face was grave. "We can't continue this," he said without preamble. "Whatever this is." "This is friendship," Winifred replied, though the word felt inadequate. "Princesses don't befriend kitchen boys. There are rules, boundaries, rules I didn't create and boundaries I never agreed to," she interrupted. "For the first time in my life, I found someone who speaks to me, not my title. And for how long can we maintain this?" A few stolen moments before reality intervenes. His voice was bitter. "My father believed in a world where birth didn't determine destiny. Look where that landed him." "Isaac." Winifred stepped closer, close enough to see the flecks of amber in his brown eyes. "I don't know what this is becoming, but I know that when I'm with you, I feel alive." He didn't move away. "That's precisely what terrifies me." Later that day, as Winifred sat through another tedious dinner with visiting diplomats, a footman delivered an urgent message. Her lady's maid, Clara, had fallen ill, and the household steward had assigned a temporary replacement. When Winifred returned to her chambers that evening, she found Isaac waiting instead of the expected maid. Her shock must have shown on her face. "Forgive me," he said quickly. "Clara is indeed ill. The steward assigned another girl, but I persuaded her to exchange duties." "How did you manage that?" "I offered to take her night shift for a week." She was quite pleased with the arrangement. Despite the impropriety, Winifred found herself smiling. "And if I were to scream for the guards?" "Then I would deservedly spend the night in the palace dungeons," Isaac replied. "But I needed to speak with you privately, without the risk of the music room." "What's happened?" He pulled a letter from his pocket. "This arrived today. My father has been released from prison, but he's been exiled to Switzerland. He wants me to join him there." Winifred felt as if the floor had dropped away beneath her. "When would you leave?" "Within the month. He has secured a teaching position at a small university in Zurich." "I see." She turned away, moving to the window. Outside, Vienna glittered with lights, beautiful and cold. "You should go. Your father needs you." "Winifred." It was the first time he had used her name. "Come with me." She turned back, certain she had misheard. "What?" "Come with me to Switzerland." His eyes burned with intensity. "You want freedom, this is your chance." For a moment, Winifred allowed herself to imagine it, a life away from the palace, free from the weight of royal expectations. A life with Isaac. "You know I can't," she whispered. "Can't, or won't?" "Both." She closed her eyes briefly. "If I disappeared, they would search for me." Your father has just been released from prison. What do you think would happen if he were discovered harboring a runaway princess? Isaac's face fell as the reality of her words sank in. So this is it? I leave, and you marry some count old enough to be your father. I didn't say that. Winifred took a deep breath. I need time to think. A knock at the door startled them both. Princess? Is everything all right? Lady Margaret's voice called. Yes, perfectly fine, Winifred called back, her heart racing. Just preparing for bed. I'll check on you in the morning, then. They waited in silence until the sound of footsteps faded. You should go, Winifred whispered. We'll talk tomorrow night, in the music room. Isaac nodded, his expression unreadable. Until tomorrow, then. But the next night, Isaac didn't come to the music room. Nor the night after. When Winifred discreetly inquired about him, she learned he had requested emergency leave to tend to a family matter. For a week, she heard nothing. Then, as she was preparing for the annual spring ball, Clara brought her a letter on a silver tray. This came for you, Your Highness. The messenger was most insistent it reach you directly. Winifred waited until she was alone to open it, her fingers trembling. Dearest W***, I write this from Zurich, where my father is recovering his health after his ordeal. I left without saying goodbye because I feared my resolve would weaken in your presence. You were right, I couldn't ask you to risk everything, to abandon your family and position. But neither can I return to a life of servitude, watching you from afar, knowing what might have been. My father has connections at the university here. They have a program for women students, pioneering in Europe. If you ever find your way to freedom, know that you would be welcomed here, not as a princess, but as the brilliant woman I've come to admire. With deepest regret and eternal affection. Winifred read the letter 3 times before carefully folding it and placing it in a hidden compartment of her jewelry box. That night, at the ball, she danced with Count Esterhazy and 6 other eligible noblemen, her smile fixed, her thoughts thousands of miles away. 2 months passed. Spring gave way to summer, and Vienna emptied as the nobility retreated to their country estates to escape the heat. Winifred's family prepared for their annual sojourn to their hunting lodge in the Alps. The day before their departure, Princess Amelia visited with her husband and infant son. As the women took tea in the garden, Amelia studied her younger sister critically. You've lost weight, she observed. And you look pale. Are you ill? Just tired, Winifred replied. The social season was exhausting. I heard Count Esterhazy has been paying particular attention to you. Mother must be pleased. Winifred stirred her tea absently. He's not to my taste. Taste has little to do with suitable marriages, Amelia said with the confidence of someone who had accepted this truth long ago. Duke Werner was hardly my ideal, but he's been a satisfactory husband. He leaves me to my own devices most of the time. Is that what marriage should be? Mutual tolerance and separate lives. Amelia raised an eyebrow. You sound like a romantic. That's dangerous thinking for women in our position. She leaned forward. What's happened? You've changed since winter. Winifred considered confiding in her sister but thought better of it. Amelia, for all her worldliness, was conventional at heart. Nothing's happened. I'm simply questioning whether the path laid out for me is the only one possible. Of course it isn't the only path, Amelia replied. But alternatives come with consequences. Remember cousin Sophia? Winifred did remember. Their cousin had eloped with an Italian artist 5 years earlier and had been promptly disowned. No one spoke of her now, except in whispered cautionary tales. That evening, Winifred made a decision. She spent hours composing a letter to Isaac, telling him of her plan to study medicine, a passion she had never shared with anyone. She had discovered a women's college in London that might accept her under an assumed name, with the right connections and financial arrangements. I don't know if this path will lead me to Zurich she wrote, but it will lead me toward the freedom we both desire. I leave for our summer residence tomorrow, where I will inform my parents of my decision. They will resist, of course, but I am prepared for that battle. She sealed the letter and addressed it to the university in Zurich, hoping it would reach him. The family's journey to the Alps the next day was uneventful. The hunting lodge, grand by most standards but modest compared to the palace, offered Winifred the privacy to refine her plan. For 2 weeks, she gathered her courage, researched her options, and prepared for the confrontation with her parents. On a clear July morning, she requested a private audience with them in her father's study. Prince Victor listened impassively as she outlined her desire to study medicine, while her mother's expression shifted from confusion to horror. "This is absolute nonsense," her mother declared when Winifred finished. "No daughter of mine will become a physician, handling the bodies of strangers." "Medical science is advancing rapidly," Winifred argued. "Women doctors are particularly needed to treat female patients who are uncomfortable with male physicians. If you're so concerned with women's health, make a charitable donation to a hospital," her father said dismissively. "This conversation is over. We've indulged your eccentricities long enough." "I'm not asking permission," Winifred said quietly. "I'm informing you of my decision." Her father's face darkened. "You forget yourself, Winifred. You have duties, responsibilities to this family and the empire. I have a responsibility to myself as well." "Enough." Prince Victor slammed his hand on the desk. "You will marry Count Esterhazy before the year's end. The arrangements are already being made." Winifred felt as if she'd been struck. "You arranged a marriage without my knowledge." "With your obvious knowledge," her mother countered. "You've been in his company regularly for months. In company arranged by you, at events arranged by you." Winifred fought to keep her voice steady. "I have expressed no interest in him." "Interest develops with time," her father said, his tone softening slightly. "Esterhazy is a good man, wealthy and respected. He will give you children, a position in society, and the security your mother and I desire for you." "And if I refuse?" Her parents exchanged glances. "Then, like any disobedient child, you will face consequences," her father said. "Including the loss of your allowance, your position at court, and potentially your title." Winifred stood, dizzy with anger and disappointment. "Then I have nothing more to say." She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Except that I would rather clean kitchens than sell myself for a title and security." That night, a violent summer storm raged through the Alps. Lightning split the sky as Winifred packed a single valise with essentials. She took only one piece of jewelry, a diamond brooch that had been her grandmother's, easily convertible to cash if necessary. She dressed in her simplest traveling clothes and left a brief note on her pillow. "I cannot live the life you've planned for me. Please do not search for me, you taught me too well to disappear if needed. Know that I love you, despite our differences." As dawn broke, Winifred slipped out through the servants' entrance, a hooded cloak concealing her face. She had memorized the coach schedules and knew one passed through the nearby village at 6 o'clock, bound for Innsbruck. From there, she could take a train to Switzerland. The village was just waking as she arrived, shopkeepers opening their doors, the smell of fresh bread wafting from the bakery. Winifred kept her head down, walking briskly toward the coaching inn. She had almost reached it when she heard a familiar voice call her name. "Winifred!" She turned, hardly daring to believe it. Isaac stood across the square, his expression a mixture of disbelief and joy. "How?" she began, but couldn't finish the question. He crossed to her in quick strides. "Your letter. I received it just before you left Vienna. When I wrote to the hunting lodge, a sympathetic maid replied, telling me of your confrontation with your parents. I've been staying in the village for 3 days, hoping to find a way to see you." "I'm leaving," Winifred said. "I can't marry Esterhazy." "I won't." "I know." Isaac took her hands in his. "I came to tell you that my father's position at the university is secure now. They're expanding their women's program. You could study medicine there, as you wrote." Around them, villagers began to take notice of the elegant young woman and the earnest young man speaking so intensely. A few cast curious glances in their direction. "We should go," Winifred said, suddenly aware of the attention. "The coach leaves soon." Isaac nodded, taking her valise. As they walked toward the inn, he asked, "Are you certain about this? Once you leave, returning won't be simple." Winifred thought of the palace, of the life mapped out for her since birth. Then she looked at Isaac, at his eyes filled with hope and possibility. "I've never been more certain of anything," she replied. 6 months later, Winifred sat in a Zurich cafe, medical textbooks spread before her. She wore simple clothes now, and her hands bore the calluses of someone who did her own washing and cooking. Her hair, once elaborately styled by maids, hung in a practical braid down her back. Isaac entered the cafe, bringing with him a gust of crisp autumn air. He bent to kiss her cheek, a liberty that still thrilled her, despite its growing familiarity. "Letter from Vienna," he said, placing an envelope on the table. Winifred recognized her sister's handwriting. Since her departure, Amelia had been her only contact with the family, writing discreet letters addressed to Winifred Adams, the name Winifred now used. The letter contained news of the family, court gossip, and a significant postscript, *Father has softened somewhat regarding your absence. The official story is that you're taking an extended therapeutic rest in a Swiss sanitarium. Count Esterhazy has since become engaged to Baron Rothschild's daughter. Should you wish to return for a visit, just a visit, mind you, I believe the reception might be less frigid than you fear. Winifred showed the letter to Isaac, who read it thoughtfully. "Will you go?" he asked. She looked around the cafe, at the students arguing philosophy at the next table, at the professor grading papers by the window, at Isaac with his intelligent eyes and gentle hands. Then she thought of Vienna, of the glittering ballrooms and the rigid protocols, the life where she had been defined by her title rather than her mind. "Someday, perhaps," she said. "But not yet. I have 3 more years of medical school, and then a lifetime to build." Isaac smiled, taking her hand across the table. "Our lifetime," he corrected. Winifred thought of the journey that had brought her here, from princess to student, from a life prescribed to a life chosen. She thought of the palace kitchens where she had first seen Isaac, and how that moment had changed everything. "Our lifetime," she agreed, and in that moment, she knew that while she had lost a title, she had found herself.